The assault force comes down onto Maduro's compound. Apparently, this was like the presidential compound. The Delta operators quickly entering and clearing the target structure. Maduro actually ran for the panic room, trying to seal himself inside this panic room. He was trying to get the door closed when the Delta operators rolled up on him and detained him.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Eyes on Geopolitics. I'm here with Jack Murphy, Mick Mulroy, Irish brothers today. Of course,
you didn't say it, we would.
Yeah. A lot popped off over the last 24, 36 hours. Nicolas Maduro was captured by a JSOC raid. Primarily, it looks like led by Delta Force with some CIA help, obviously. There's been reported that Ground Branch was on the ground since August in a safe house in Caracas, shucking and jiving, doing some covert operations, doing what they do. It also was reported that there was somebody close in the inner circle of Maduro that was, handing over a ton of intelligence to the United States. 50 million sounds nice. I would probably do the same thing if I lived in Venezuela. And it all went down. It looked like it went down pretty smoothly. One helicopter took some damage, and there were a couple of injuries, but those folks were brought to, I think, San Antonio, right? Because there's a level 1 trauma center there, a DOD one, to get better. Honestly, it was, I've been doing the team house for a long time with Jack and Dave, and we've been, interviewing guys like this. This is probably the best thing that the America can actually do. And I think it's all downhill after this, if I'm being completely honest. Maduro was transferred to the USS Iwo Jima, then to Guantanamo. Now he's like 3 miles away from me in Brooklyn, hanging out, and he's going to be brought up on charges. So it was an insane operation. I can't wait for the next few years when guys start retiring and coming on the team house and telling us about it. But for right now, let's talk about what went down yesterday. I mean, you guys take your pick. Who wants to go first?
I'd just like to go a little bit into some of the background. And if my voice gives out, I apologize. I'm getting kind of sick. So it's good we're doing this remotely. So one of the things that kind of like plays into how this unfolded was over the last 4 years, there have been a lot of dissatisfaction in the Venezuelan military because of Maduro. Basically promoting his loyalists, people who are incompetent. And so that created a break within the Venezuelan military. And then the other thing was there were a couple high-level defections. I think one of them was Venezuela's intel chief, and another was one of the guys that ran state-run oil companies over there. And those defections, as I understand it, were key to enabling the CIA to know who to work with on the ground, to put them in touch with resistance networks on the ground. And there was a local source network and resistance network on the ground that played a key part of this operation. So then around September, October, as I understand it, the planning process for this operation really kicked up. And they went into what's known as operational preparation of the battlefield or environment, depending on the acronym you want to use. We mentioned, special activities was on the ground. Absolutely. The CIA was all over this one. The unit known as ISI or ISA or MSO, or again, whichever acronym we're using this day, but Army Intelligence also, greatly involved in the OPE portion of this. And that involves a couple of different things. You notice that the lights got turned out in Caracas, similar to how they got turned out in Abbottabad right before the operation took place. As I understand it, we had complete control of the Venezuelan comm system when we went in there. And then there's a few more things that as we run up to the actual operation. But Mick, I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I'd start with absolutely well done on the part of JSOC and obviously my old outfit supporting them. We'll get into the legalities a bit, but I think everybody can be proud of how this was executed. And I agree with you, D. It's one of the things that the U.S. does the best, right? Project power anywhere in the world based on exquisite intelligence, which really needs to happen, or it's a risk not worth taking if you don't have that intelligence, right? So you already repeated what was reported on what the agency did. I don't know that to be true, but I'm imagine it is, and I imagine somebody out there is talking about it at Langley. Um, I think it's exceptional if they did insert a team on the ground that was there for that many months. It took a lot of guts to do that, and a lot of very skilled tradecraft, and it apparently did lead to knowing exactly where and when Maduro would be, which is really a necessity when it comes to deploying a force like Delta. Um, it's it's incredibly dangerous to go into a built up urban environment with that amount of force. It's very risky, and they did it, and they did it really well. Yes, there was some. You can expect that it's going to be some injuries. Unfortunately, let's all think about the guys as they get better, and then of course the damage to the helicopter. Hats off, 100%. The question is going to be, and I think Jack needs to get into some more of the details because anybody's written about this before we get into legality and everything that came after the press conference. Specifically to Maduro, I think it's important to point out that he wasn't a legitimate president. He had lost the election and stayed in power, and he has been indicted for 5 years. He is the head of a drug cartel. So I get the questions on the legality, comparing it to Noriega. There's some differences there, especially when it came to the aftermath and Noriega's point. As soon as we got him, the actual elected government leader was sworn in like the day after. If you go back and look at history, so we played it a little different there. But as far as the actual apprehension, extraordinarily well done. Hats off to the military. Hats off to my old organization to support it. And I think that it's a good thing that he's off the streets.
One of the things that I heard was that we had recruited a source very close to Maduro who was able to provide basically real-time updates on his movements the last couple weeks. So when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff stood up yesterday and he said, like, we were tracking where he was going, where he was sleeping, even what his pets were. Like,
Yeah.
that's probably pretty accurate in this case. Um, and speaking to the legality a little bit before we get into the bigger picture, the OPE piece of this operation, as I understand it, was conducted under the 2001 Authorization for the Use of Military Force, the AUMF, which is very interesting. The AUMF is being used to justify basically any sort of military action anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the correct legal interpretation, but that's how it's been interpreted and how it's been used. And it's also being used to justify the strikes against the alleged drug boats off the coast. So it's a post 9/11 legal authority that continues to haunt us for better or worse. So as far as the operation itself, there were a couple guys from the FBI hostage rescue team on board the helicopters. There were about 11 helicopters, three Little Birds, two Chinooks, six Blackhawks, about that, crossed into Venezuelan airspace around 1 a.m. local time.
Where did they launch
Um,
from? Do you know, Jack?
I believe it's off the coast.
So from a ship, because we have,
Yeah, yeah.
let's just say, in Lobo Institute, we have a lot of former SEAL Team 6 and Delta guys. So if they launch from a ship, this is going to be really funny.
Yes.
Just,
Um,
there's
and
going to
so
be a lot of back and forth on that one.
for this operation, I'm told that there was a Delta squadron, a Dev Group squadron, and a Ranger battalion all deployed for it. The assault force itself consisted of Delta and Rangers. I'm trying to make sure I'm 100% on this, but I believe it was C Squadron from Delta and 375 3rd Ranger Battalion that was on the assault force. They
That's good to
used
know.
terrain masking, basically to hide their radar signature as they infiltrated into Venezuela, popped up over that last terrain feature, and assessed that they had still maintained the element of surprise. At that point, during the final leg of the ingress, there's a huge strike package, it sounds like, about 150 aircraft in the air, began suppressing the air defense systems, airstrikes. And those local source networks on the ground that I mentioned earlier were, as I understand it, huge in enabling this operation. That they emplaced a lot of technical devices like jammers, beacons. Bombing beacons is a thing not too many people talk about, but that's been
Right,
around
right.
since the 60s.
Yep.
So those local source networks were a big part of helping this operation move forward. And again, as I mentioned, the lights popped off as they were heading in. Um, and President Trump said during the press conference, he said, "We did that using a expertise we have. Make of that what you will." Uh, the assault force comes down onto Maduro's compound. Apparently, this was like the presidential compound. They came in, Rangers helping with the isolation piece on the target, the Delta operators quickly entering and clearing the target structure. And as we were told in the press conference, Maduro actually ran for the panic room and was trying to seal himself inside this panic room. He was trying to get the door closed when the Delta operators rolled up on him and detained him. And at that point, him and his wife surrendered themselves, and
Sure.
they were placed under arrest by the
Good
FBI
choice.
agents who were on this operation. Um, Before we get into the exfiltration, anything you want to add there, Mick?
Well, I would like to add, hats off to the 160th, right? Sometimes they don't get
Yeah,
the credit they deserve. None
yeah.
of this happened without the absolute skill, expertise that you
They
already
probably had
mentioned.
the hard part of the mission, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the chairman said yesterday they flew about 100 feet above the water. I mean, I'm not a helicopter pilot, but I know how hard that is. 100 feet above the water at night, going into a area where you're probably guessing you're going to get shot at a lot because we try to mitigate the air threats. But so super hats off to them. Um, and hats off to the cyber guys. Somebody did that, whatever that was, to get the we don't tend to give them enough credit. That is a big advantage when we are very capable at fighting at night. That's one thing the United States does better than anybody else. And it's only effective if you can make it night, right? So you got to make it night. And that's what they did. So I just wanted to add those two, attaboys to those two groups.
So as the aircraft came in for the extraction, there were more suppressive fires, more airstrikes around the target area. They got onto the aircraft, and they apparently were told that the helicopters fired back in self-defense. One of the
So there was
helicopters,
ground fire against
yeah,
our assault force.
there was ground fire. One helicopter was hit, but remained flyable. Um, and they took back off, and I believe the time they gave was about 3:30 a.m. that they crossed back into international airspace, and back to whatever the platform that they launched from. Now, I'm told that the dev group guys that were there for that operation, not on the assault package, but they had secondary targets that they were hitting. And quite frankly, I don't know what those targets were right now. But they played in the action. So yeah, a lot of different folks got to play during this operation in different ways. And then let's see, what's the next
Is
piece
it
of
true that they
news?
did a whole compound? Like they did a mock compound and trained
Yeah,
on it
yeah.
for?
I was told Camp McCall. They built like a two scale perfect replica. It may not have been McCall. There's another training area that JSOC uses in that area. That's not technically McCall. It's a different place, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, they did do like full mission rehearsals for all of this. Um, and Maduro himself, I'm told that they've been recording him basically constantly since he was first detained, in order to refute any allegations of torture that come down the line. That they are not torturing him, and I'm told that actually some of the things that have been done, that they are treating him as a representative of the state of Venezuela, even though we understand him to be an illegitimate leader. So they're not like perp walking him in the orange jumpsuit with the blindfold on. They're not going quite that route with it. But he is being watched to make sure that there aren't these allegations down the line. And as you pointed out, he landed here in New York City, I think last night.
Yeah, like
Uh,
8-ish.
yeah, and I'm told right now the Department of Justice is hoping that they can flip his wife. So we didn't mention that, but the wife, Cecilia, was detained also
So
during this
that's why they
operation.
also charged her, so they have something.
Yeah, they're trying to flip her. But I'm not a legal expert, but I believe there is some legal stuff about flipping a spouse. That it's kind of something that's like in the court of law, it's considered like something that you can't really do because a spouse is never
Well,
going to
there's like a
be.
spousal. It's almost like you have like a priest and a lawyer type.
I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
yeah.
I don't know if that's inadmissible in
I
reality.
don't
If
think
they,
To
it's
be
I
honest.
think they
inadmissible.
can. Either one can waive it. I don't think it's not near as strong, obviously, as the lawyer-client privilege, but there is
Right.
a spousal privilege, and I
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be
There
what you.
there is some legal hiccups there. But and also the indictment itself. I read through it yesterday, and the indictment is like almost laughable. It's like kind of a joke. And I've been told it's basically just a boilerplate drug conspiracy indictment, and they're probably going to have to update it somewhere down the line because like the stuff they're charged, the stuff that's in there, it's like, yeah, good luck even proving that in a court of law.
Well, the one where he was talking about using machine guns against the those were kind of laughable sounding charges.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I remember there was an indictment that came down on Gaddafi at one point. I read through that, and that was equally laughable. It's like it felt like a high school kid wrote that in his mom's basement over a weekend or something.
Well, they're
But
going to have to produce evidence to get. I mean, this is just an indictment. That's just to get an indictment, and that's a low standard. To get a
yeah,
conviction is, beyond a reasonable doubt. They're going to have to declassify some intelligence
yeah,
and prove that he
definitely.
was running this drug cartel. I'm not saying they can't, but they're going to have to be ready to really disclose some information because they
So
can't lose this. If they lose this,
no, oh
what are
my
they going to do?
god,
Fly him back?
just send them back. Yeah, like that's insane.
So the other thing that I wanted to mention was that I was told that this was phase one of the operation, and that there are other phases, other stages that may or may not be executed. The triggers of which are kind of ambiguous from what I'm hearing, but Trump seemed to confirm this himself during the press conference where he said, I have a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. Second wave can be launched. So there are other stages of this that can be launched if things deteriorate inside Venezuela. Interestingly, we did leave all the other key leaders in place in Venezuela. That was very
Yes.
intentional. We pulled Maduro out, but we did not decimate the leadership element in the country because we're hoping that they're going to figure things out. Now, this is kind of, in my opinion, kind of a dicey strategy. Like, good luck, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hope it all works out. But that is why we did that. And if things deteriorate over the next, 24 to 48 hours, you could see some of those other stages of the operation launched.
if you're in the market for a new mattress, you've probably seen all the brands out there vying for your attention. Big names, splashy ads, all promising the same thing. But here's the only brand that does it right. It's GhostBed. GhostBed was created and is still run by manufacturing experts with more than 20 years of mattress making experience. They know the craft and they know how to build a bed that actually lasts. So how do they offer premium mattresses for up to 50% off less than the competition? It's not hype, it's smart logistics. As a family-owned company, that means there's no board of investors to answer to. It's just folks working hard, selling mattresses. These are the true manufacturing pros, and the result is an exceptional cooling and comfort at a price that won't keep you up at night. Every GhostBed mattress includes proven cooling materials backed by a 20 to 25 year warranty. You also get a 101 night sleep trial with free returns if the mattress doesn't work for you, and fast free shipping. Most orders arrive in 2 to 5 days. Right now, as a Team House listener, you can get 25% off site wide for a limited time. You can just go to ghostbed.com/house and use the promo code HOUSE at checkout. That's ghostbed.com/house, promo code HOUSE. Upgrade your sleep with GhostBed, the makers of the coolest beds in the world. Some exclusions apply. See site for details. I want to thank GhostBed so much for continuously supporting us. It's been going on a year almost. So I really appreciate that. I hope you guys, if you're in the market for mattresses or pillows or bedding, check out GhostBed. You can go to ghostbed.com/house and get 25% off right now. Love you and love GhostBed. Thanks, guys.
That's risky because, like, deteriorating situation is not generally the time you want to send in U.S. forces. Like, what are they going to do? Quell a nation of 25 million people? I mean, just do the math on that. And under coin theory, that's like 600,000 troops necessary to actually, and we're not doing that.
I
So,
hope not, Mick.
no. I mean, I have to say, I mean, there was differences legally. Noriega, there was a treaty to defend the canal. There was U.S. forces that were in Panama at the time that Noriega was apprehended. So there was, in some ways, more of a legal justification in self-defense, both to the canal, which we had a responsibility, a treaty obligation to do, and defend our forces, right? But it was similar in the fact that we arrested him, brought him to the United States, tried and convicted him. I think they had a stronger case, obviously, to make the apprehension of Maduro legally. But then when we got to the press conference, then the issue of we're going to run Venezuela, I see no legal justification for that internationally. We're going to take the oil. That's clearly not allowed internationally. Now, the question is, well, there's like Exxon and Chevron. They had their infrastructure basically taken by the government of Venezuela. And I think they have an actual judgment of $1 billion. So a legal judgment. Obviously, I think they should be made whole. But that doesn't mean the United States gets to take the resources of another country just because they had a bad dictator, right? That belongs to the people of Venezuela. And then the other part is this idea that Machado has no support. Maria Machado, the Nobel Prize recipient. I am not a Venezuela expert. I know Venezuelan experts. They say that's totally not true. And the ones I know are on the right side of the political spectrum, firmly on the right. And they have told me, in no uncertain terms, she did win the election. It was a stand-in that won 70% of the vote. She wasn't allowed to run, or she would have won probably more. And she has a lot of support in Venezuela. And if she were to come back, she could then legitimize the government. The United States could then work with them as another democracy that's more pro-U.S., less pro-Iran and Russia. And then we could develop their oil infrastructure and everybody's a winner. But it sounds like what we're doing is keeping somebody in place that we think we can control. And then we're going to somehow govern through her.
So they're hoping that VP that just became president, Delcy
Rodriguez,
just
as corrupt as Maduro. I mean, she has to be.
Yeah.
Right? She was his vice president. Ball. She goes all the way back to Hugo Chavez as part of this cabal. They're all the same. So it's part of the regime. She's just as corrupt and illegitimate as Maduro was. So if we're using that argument as a reason to remove Maduro, same thing with her. And the Secretary of Defense, Lopez, Minister of Interior, apparently is even worse. So my question was like, okay, good job on that, but what are we going to do going forward? Are we actually think? And she said she's not going to listen to the United States. So as soon as we said we are going to control the government through her, she said, no, you're not.
Can you blame her?
Of course, if she would have said yes, right, she might have been ripped to shreds by the rest of the regime. There's three things that I would question. One, why announce it? You've just put her in a horrible place. Even if that was the plan, not a good step. Two,
yeah, that's not how it works when you got a puppet.
Yeah, I don't understand that. You're not supposed
to show the strings, dude. They're supposed to be invisible.
And then two, when why announce it? You're actually running the show.
Yeah.
So you said she's going to. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me why you would do that. And then we don't need the oil. I'm not an energy expert either. Well, I mean, we don't personally need the oil. Like we have a lot of oil reserves in the United States we don't tap now. And
yeah, but our issue with oil here is the heavy crude stuff that we import mostly from Canada from. And that's what Venezuela has. And we have a lot of refineries in and along like the Gulf.
But we would still have access to it if it was a friendly government.
Sure, absolutely.
We don't have to have a puppet government.
Right.
That's what I mean by like we don't need to take the oil.
No, I agree with that 100%. Right, yeah.
Right. I mean, what standard are we setting around the world if that becomes
pretty bad one, honestly, because why can't China be like, we're just taking Taiwan? Like it's the same thing.
Neo-colonialism.
As well as Russia, like we're just taking Ukraine. You are trying to.
So yeah, I get that we should have access to it, and then we could help develop it, and for the benefit of Venezuelans as well as Americans. Right? There's a way to do this the right way. It seems like announcing that she's a puppet, saying that we're going to control it, and saying we're going to take the oil are not the ways.
Well, there were some reports too a couple months back when the buildup started that Maduro was negotiating with the U.S. about like, hey, we'll cancel our contracts with China and Russia, in terms of
Cool.
developing our own. We'll work with you guys, and that was a no go. So
Is that a no go? That seems like a go go.
I don't know. I guess
So
they
that's
wanted to win.
on the strategy. I'd question the strategy here
Yeah.
and what you disclose and what you don't. I think there's a way the U.S. can significantly benefit from the removal of Maduro, economically and politically. Probably just going to need to do something different on care.
Yeah, the U.S. will run Venezuela for now until transition with no specifics. Is kind of, I'm getting like this is like deja vu all over again. I mean, I guess we're being honest though, at least for in terms of our administration's interests of what they really want, and it sounds like they really want the oil and not just hey, we'll be partners with you guys. It's just like we want the oil. And I don't know how that happens without like 250,000 plus U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela.
So we can take the oil for our economic benefit
I
for our
guess.
companies. It's not going to be for our country, or is it going to
Sure.
be for literally U.S. is
No,
going
I'm
to.
assuming they're not going
Yeah.
to nationalize the oil industry in the U.S., but like, yeah, it's for the oil companies. I don't
Well,
think it's
couldn't they
going to.
just do that? And also, I mean, to think about it long term, you'd have to do a counterinsurgency plan forever because you're taking their natural resources. They're not going to like it. There's 25 million of them. It's twice the size of California.
I'm with you,
Just throwing
man.
a facts
It's
here.
bad
Like,
shit. Yeah.
and we could just work with them. They get a benefit. The people, I mean, it's $17 trillion worth of oil reserve, right? That's a
It's the biggest in the
that's a
world.
win-win scenario for everybody involved, right? And it could be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. That's bigger than Saudi Arabia. Like there's enough for U.S. oil companies, which they need the expertise. They always need the expertise, right? But it could also benefit the people of Venezuela. If you do it the other way, they're going to want to be the biggest insurgency that you'll have to quell for as long as you're there. So, I mean, maybe we're going further than what they intend to do, to be fair. And I do think it was a very well done operation, and I'm with them on Maduro paying the piper. But my question is going forward, the end game. It's always the end game.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah, I think it was a 10 out of 10 operation. I mean, like, there's nobody better than JSOC and the CIA doing this. But like I said when we started, it seems the U.S. is really good at that, but everything else kind of starts to go downhill after that, after the
It's the
military
policy.
operation. You know what I mean? Like, we're really good at, like, fucking things up, like, in terms of doing what the military is supposed to do, best in the world, obviously, because you see what Russia tried to do in terms of a decapitation strike in Ukraine. It's fast forward almost 4 years now. They're still there. Um, we did it in one night, in not even 2 hours, right? So we're really good at that. It's just what comes after is we're not really, at least our track record shows that we're not good at it.
Yeah, we need our policy folks to be as good as our special operations military and
Yeah.
intelligence folks. It's almost always the failure to plan after the.
I want to touch on a little bit about the international law stuff because there is a big debate going on in terms of that. Where are you guys at in terms, with that? I mean, just going in and whether he's illegitimate or not, he's a dictator and he's not there. He's the president of the country, and we captured him.
I think we should stop calling people who are illegitimate presidents. Just call them
That
like the
the,
leader
the
of the.
term that you hear DEA guys use sometimes is habeas grabus. In the FBI even before 9/11 was involved in renditions, and that's
Oh, yeah.
essentially what this was. It was a rendition. It wasn't a traditional JSOC capture kill mission like it was for Baghdadi or Soleimani was a kill.
Yeah.
Baghdadi was probably capture kill. But with the it's very interesting and very odd, and I don't really know the answer as far as like what title authorities this was conducted under. It sounds to me like this was considered a Department of Justice operation enabled by the military. In
Yes.
this sense, the Rangers and Delta guys are like the escorts for the FBI agents to get them in there and serve an arrest warrant. And we can serve arrest warrants internationally, although going into sovereign countries and by military force is a different matter. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. But the other question though is like because the AUMF is used to justify anything, and it's in the age that we're in right now, I think there's a legitimate question that to ask like, does it matter? Does it really matter what the law is? Because who's going to hold anyone accountable for any of this? I'm sorry to
Mm,
sound cynical, but we do this stuff over and over again, and there's no accountability in government at all. And it seems like we can bend and sometimes break the law to do things. And, we don't let it get in our way all that much. So yeah, I mean that's
yeah,
like my
Congress has
my
been,
cynical take on it.
yeah,
Like
to
you
go
said,
down the legals. Oh, sorry, D, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
On the legal side, so I mentioned Noriega, which seems like we had more evidence that it was lawful back then because of our troop presence. But it's important to point out we were roundly condemned by the UN. They passed a referendum saying that what we did was illegal back in 1990s. Probably going to happen again. So under the charter of the UN, you can't violate a nation's sovereignty unless you get a Security Council resolution, which wasn't going to happen because Russia's going to veto the hell out of that, or you're under an imminent threat. That's where the administration, the White House is saying we were, I guess, from drugs. But important to point out that drugs from Venezuela, mostly cocaine, I think a majority of it actually goes to Europe, right? So they were trying to like make fentanyl like a weapon of mass destruction and stuff. That's all Mexico. That comes out of Mexico.
And China.
So yeah, the parts come from China
Precursors,
and
the
then they're put
precursors,
together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even I
So
mean, the drugs is such a pretext, and they're not even really BSing us too much about it being a pretext. I mean, they're saying it's
right.
about the oil, you
Now
know?
they're saying it's about the oil. Yeah. So that's not an imminent threat. So you're defeating your own argument,
Right.
right? But to Jack's point, like, well, who are you arguing with? Because they don't care. They generally don't care what the rest of the world's gonna, if they are gonna condemn them. So, but you're defeating your argument when you say it's about the oil because that's not an imminent threat. So we'll have to see. But the other point Jack made, if there's no balance of powers, there's no checks and balance, there's no congressional oversight, there's no congressional response. They get on talk shows, podcasts, and um, then they're going to do what they want, right? That's the only
Yeah.
place to really uh, hold them accountable if you think this is unlawful. Uh, I didn't think it was, but I'm not, international legal expert. But I do clearly think taking a country's natural resources because of what? I mean, what's the justification? You've even taken the justification that Maduro was a terrorist leader off the table because he's sitting in a jail cell next to D right now, right? So there's no justification for taking a nation's natural resources. It's clear under the law. It's essentially a war crime under all the Geneva Conventions that we not only supported, but we drafted. Like most of those things in the UN's early creation after World War II was done by the United States to put us at the pinnacle of the world order. And now we're violating the very things that we didn't want to see happen and that kept us as the leader of the free world or created us as the leader of the free world. So big time, I think, strategic and policy implications going forward if we do something like physically take the oil. Or maybe they're just being clumsy with the way they're saying it, but I hope that's the case.
I mean, forget even international law because like that seems to be very flexible. Just like you said, we told Congress after it happened. Like even the Gang of Eight, we
Yes.
didn't tell before. And I understand the reason you want to keep it secret and you want it to be a success. Totally understand that, but uh,
And it looked like the New
it's
York Times and Washington Post
had
already
it,
had this
yeah,
information and
and
they,
they
they
held it.
elected not. That goes to the whole point of kicking them out of the Pentagon. They still got the information and they did the right thing. They didn't spill the beans,
Yeah,
which would have been
horrible.
very,
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, like if you're gonna put guys in harm's way, like that's it's not their they're doing honestly. I mean, this is also a flexible term that they're doing their job and what they're ordered to do. But I mean, the way that this administration kind of skirts the law is pretty unbelievable. And frankly, the way the opposition reacts to it is also unbelievable because they are completely and utterly toothless cowards, going to be honest. From my own Senator Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they are gutless. They have no balls whatsoever. We obviously know the Republicans are going to go whichever way the administration goes, but you're the opposition party. And just to go
Well, the
along
Republicans should have their own agency too, right? They shouldn't just be.
in theory, yeah, you would think. You'd think, Mick. I
I'm
mean,
still questioning why we even have that branch of government. All they do is pass the NDAA, right?
that's literally it.
Well, we could just have that just rubber, chink.
Yeah.
Even if you agree with it, I think you would still want, even if you agree with everything the administration is doing, and I have friends on both sides of the aisle, mostly on the right, even if you agree with it, you'd still want a Senate that actually can put a check. What if the next government like this is on the other side of the aisle and there's nobody to, that's the Constitution. That was set up for a reason.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, man. I mean, the Senate and the House, their jobs are serious jobs and they should take them seriously. And the fact that they aren't is an absolute joke. Just saying this as an American citizen. Jack, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just like the unprecedented sort of times that we're in. And I often think, and people rightly, call things out and say, that's illegal. We say, that's hypocritical, that's inconsistent. But those things can be true, and we can also be in this moment where none of that matters. Like, I find that arguing about these inconsistencies, it doesn't move anyone's opinion. It doesn't change anyone's stance. That's unfortunate. I wish we could have more open conversations about these things. But for Jack Murphy to sit here and be like, that's a hypocritical policy. Why can you shouldn't be doing that when you're doing this? No one cares. That's the moment we're in right now. No one cares about that. We're not interested in policy, regulation, lawful governance. Like we're just not really tethered to these things anymore, as near as I can tell. And the courts seem to be, hanging by a thread, maintaining some semblance of normalcy and in providing checks on power. But yeah, we're in some interesting waters here as a country.
You think that would change if you had the draft come back? Just throw a grenade out there.
A lot of things would change real quick. If rich people's kids started getting drafted into the military, a lot of things would change in this country. Very
saying there's no consequences right now. That's why they're kind of indifferent to it. It's like, it doesn't bother
exactly.
me.
And that's why we went and did Maduro, because there's so little consequence. Like, what are the Russians going to do about Venezuela? What are the Chinese going to do? Nothing. They're not going to do anything. And that's why we go after Venezuela. We pick these fake fights, like we did with Denmark and Greenland and this kind of stuff, because this administration does understand they can't resolve our problems with Russia. They can't resolve our problems with China. They can't resolve our problems with Iran or North Korea. Like, these are quagmires that they're unable to solve, but they see something like Maduro and like, that's a feather in your hat. You can go and do that, and there's basically no repercussion. And as we've seen, the American public doesn't consider airstrikes and special ops raids to be war. That doesn't faze them at all.
Right. So you think we're going to see indictments of the leaders of Ukraine and Taiwan next? Are they just going to duplicate us and say, okay, well, this is a breakaway province. It's a rebel leader. He's under indictment in Beijing. Yeah,
maybe.
And same thing with come up with some reason for Zelensky. He targeted my house, which he didn't. But even if he did, he's a valid target. That's what could happen. They just duplicate our MO.
My understanding also is that Marco Rubio is one of the driving forces behind all of this, and that he has Havana squarely in his sights next.
He said so.
Yeah. That a lot of this is about like closing that whole Bay of Pigs loop that's been going on for the last, 50, 60 years. And they're thinking that this Venezuela op can be a template that can be used elsewhere.
So we could see indictments of
but
leaders.
This Venezuela op isn't done yet, right? Like, what happens next in the next days, weeks, and months now?
Really good question. What if nothing changes, right? We get
Right.
Maduro on trial and the regime's still in place.
Yeah.
They're still dealing with Iran. They're still dealing with Russia. They're still trying to run drugs.
Yeah, so that's what I don't get about this the Cuba thing. Like I get it, Cuba's like a historical black eye for the United States, I guess, but it's a fucking little baby island that like it means nothing. And I guess that's to your point, Jack, where you were mentioning like this is like relatively low hanging fruit, right? Instead of like,
Yes.
brinksmanship with China in the South China Sea over Taiwan, where it's like, holy shit, we could lose tens of thousands of sailors and
Yep.
personnel.
And we're doing nothing about the current exercise that's
Right.
practicing the blockade of Taiwan.
Right. That was like kind of unprecedented
Nothing.
too, right? Like this wasn't like our new thing. This wasn't like a plain thing that they kind of telegraph a little bit. Like this seemed like it was out of nowhere.
Yeah, it
Um,
was because we approved like $11 billion worth of sale of arms to Taiwan, which we have a law that kind of requires us to do that.
I need some speculation out speculation time. What happens over the next weeks and months? Does Delcy Rodriguez play ball with the administration? Does she? What are we looking at?
I just had somebody text me and thinks she fled the country. I don't know if that's true.
There was
That
some
was
there was some
reported
rumor
earlier,
about that yesterday that she went to Russia, but
but
she
Oh,
came out
yeah.
and did a press conference.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think she'll leave.
I think
Yeah.
on the ground in Caracas so far, we haven't seen like some sort of uprising or crime spree. You haven't seen widespread chaos, which leads you to think that Maduro maybe wasn't quite as important as any people or as many of us may have thought he was, right? He didn't have a sort of importance to the people on the ground that live there. And as long as the vital services are kept running, electricity, sewer pipes, water, so on, that it's kind of business as usual for them, and it's one dictator replaced with another from their point of view, more than likely. So, um, it seems like things are relatively stable right now, but we're still going to need some sort of a long-term solution to Venezuela. Um, yeah, I'm also not convinced that you can just swear in this VP and suddenly American oil companies are going to be able to operate freely in Venezuela. I'm not sure it's that simple.
Yeah, I think the United States should use what they're doing, like the oil tanker seizure, to pressure the government to have a free and fair election. Machado can come back. She wins, she wins. She doesn't, she doesn't. Or whoever wins, right? And then that government we work with to help build up as a partner. And I'm sure they would give us access to them. I mean, they already had in the past. And then again, the U.S. would get the benefit of, this huge reservoir of oil in our own hemisphere, and the people of Venezuela would get a lion's share of it. I mean, that's, you know, maybe it's an idealistic way to look at it, but I think it's also an easier path forward than trying to run the country from Washington, D.C., which is just not a possibility. And like Jack said, they're not uprising, so it's not going to happen organically. Where they are uprising is Iran. I don't know if we're going to talk about that today, but
Yeah,
there's protests in
we can
like
touch.
70
Yeah,
different
we can
states.
totally
Yeah.
touch on that. I mean, we see what's going on. I mean, what are you hearing about that? I mean, I know like their economy's in the shitter. There's a drought there. It's a fucking absolute nightmare.
It is a nightmare. They've run it, like most regimes, they've run it into the ground. They basically just worry about the preservation of the regime. They're under a huge sanction, so that's also part of the problem. But every time these uprisings has happened, the only thing this regime's good at is quelling an uprising. So I don't know why the president's talking about, direct military action as far as a protest. But one thing that President Obama said back in 2009, the Green Revolution, is he should have said more. Like we should promote, because it would be overthrowing a regime very hostile to us and potentially getting a democracy uh, in Tehran. And it's in a very advanced modern culture, like very smart. It would be, I think, great to have as a partner going forward. So whatever the United States can do, and I'm not talking like airstrikes or anything like that, although a lot of our friends are tracking a large flow of aircraft going into Europe right now,
A
looking
lot of
very similar to
160.
the On 60th, I don't understand, but like all of the large refuelers and transport aircraft. So I don't know if there was something of an agreement between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu on another strike on Iran. I don't think that's related to the protests, probably more related to their uh, reported desire to get a nuclear weapon. There's been some, I think, credible reporting that the uh, Supreme Leader has decided to do that, something he hasn't done in the past. If that's the case, it's gonna happen again, right? Midnight Hammer is gonna start hammering again because we can't let them get a nuclear weapon. It's only a couple of weeks, I think. And I got to change over for my next media thing, but I can hear you. We got to really focus on the intel on that because they need to both get 90% enrichment. They have enough of the actual material. Then they have to make the triggering device, the weapon itself, and then they got to make it small enough to fit on the missiles. But they can do that by all everybody I've talked to that's expert on this. They can do it. It take a little while, or they could buy some of it, which would speed this up substantially. Like they could buy some of it from North Korea. So two things: protest. Hopefully they're successful because then it also gets rid of the nuclear threat. But if they don't, this is just going to enhance the regime's need to have a nuclear weapon. It's the survivability of the regime, right? So we have two things coming into play, and Iran could be what we talk about in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Jack, what are you thinking about? I mean, I have thoughts on that.
I'm not tracking it super closely,
Yeah.
but I know they're having problems with inflation. The Iranians got hit by COVID pretty hard. That hit their economy too. And then of course the ongoing, state repression and student rights and all this other stuff. Um, and I mean, we've seen kind of these uprisings in Iran before, and every time you hope that the Iranian people are able to choose democracy, you hope that it goes forward. And I think Iran would. Mick's right. I mean, Iran would make a great partner for the United States,
Right.
except for the fact that they have this extremist religious government that is very antagonistic towards the United States and the United States' national interests.
Very true.
I don't want to be snarky, guys. I don't want to be snarky today. It's Sunday. JSOC just did a amazing operation. I don't want to be snarked out. I mean, I'll be a little snarked out. I mean, so I thought we obliterated their entire nuclear program. That's what I thought would happen as a layman, right? As what I'm seeing on the news and the headlines. Obviously, I know that they didn't. We didn't, but I'm talking as like the normal Joe here. Um, when is enough enough? I don't understand. Like, are we actually going to obliterate their ability to create a nuclear weapon? Also, they didn't enrich as much uranium when under the JCPOA 1.0. We
True.
know that for sure.
True.
And I get it. Iran's a shitty regime. Like the regime is shitty.
Yes.
They're religious fundamentalists, and there's no room for that, whether it's Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, in terms of fundamentalism for me.
Sure.
So they're no bueno, obviously. But at the same time, it's like, as the layman, it feels like we're doing Israel's bidding. I'll just say that. Sorry.
Well, yeah, there's the question. I mean, does this benefit American interests or Israeli interests? And they may be aligned in some cases, but not all the time. And every anti-Iranian action is not necessarily a pro-American action, and that's just something to think about.
It is. So I have to jump. They're
Mick's got to
texting
go
me
to
now.
his real job. Mick,
Thank you,
thanks as always.
Thanks,
You
Jens.
can jump
see the
whenever you want.
story
I'll wrap this
speech
up.
that he did in the telephone booth?
Yeah, it's like Superman.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Great
All right, Mick,
discussion.
see ya. Thanks again.
Take care.
Do us a favor, guys. Check out Mick's new podcast called The Pub and the Porch Applied Stoicism. Comes out every Monday morning. It's really good. Jack Murphy, The High Side, of course, came out with a great article about the inner workings of what went down with the operation to capture Maduro. Came out yesterday, so check that out. That link is in the description. It's The High Side.
I'm going to write an update to that article today, too, with some of the additional information I've gotten.
Cool.
And the article is called Bold Delta Force Raid Leads to Capture and Arrest of Maduro. It's up on the high side right now, thehighside.substack.com. You can go check it out.
And there will be a link in the description for that, so just go snatch it right there. He does it, of course, with Sean Naylor, legendary reporter and author. He literally wrote the book on JSOC, Relentless Strike. And, of course, you're going to check out these interviews with the guys who did this probably in a few years from now on the Team House podcast. So to support the show, both Eyes On and the Team House, where you get it for completely ad-free early, you can ask us questions. Watch the Team House episodes live. You can go to patreon.com/the Team House and you can help support the show. Jack, thanks for doing this. I know your throat is hoarse.
Yeah.
And we got a
guys.
busy week this week too. So we got to make sure we put a pitch count on your throat.
Yeah, I'll try to get better.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Hey guys, I want to tell all of you today about a new newsletter that we're launching that encompasses both the Team House podcast, the Eyes On podcast, and the High Side news outlet, which I run with Sean Naylor. The newsletter is going to be once a week. It's going to come into your inbox, and you're going to get the most current podcasts on Eyes On and the Team House and whatever's topical or current on the high side. So it's another way for us to get the information out to you, as social media algorithms are pretty iffy and you never really know what you're going to get. So this is a once a week email. It'll slide into your inbox and it will have, the greatest hits of that week.
It's really good, man. I'm checking it out.
The website for it is teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. You go there and you enter into your email list, or you enter your email into the little thing on the website, and you're good to go. And that'll be it. So we really appreciate your support and hope you'll consider signing up.
Where's the link?
The link will also be down in the description if you're looking for it there.
And that's teamhousepodcast.kit, KIT, Kilo India Tango.com /join.